Every morning before dawn, Radhika walked to the well. The village was still quiet, the sun not yet risen. When she lowered the bucket, it made a gentle splashing sound. She loved that sound. This was Plachimada, a small village in southern Kerala, India. Rows of rice paddies and coconut trees lined the quiet, peaceful landscape. The entire village depended on that single well. Her grandmother had drunk from it. Her great-grandmother too. For hundreds of years, it had never run dry. Then one morning in the year 2000, Radhika lowered the bucket and stopped. Less than half the usual amount came up. At first, she blamed the season. But days passed, and the water level did not recover. A week went by, then a month. Then the color of the water changed. It had turned milky white. There was a strange smell. When she cooked with it, her child complained of stomach pain. The neighbor's child had the same problem. The village elders looked at one another in silence. No one had ever seen anything like this. That year's rainfall was no different from normal. It was not a drought. The real cause was a factory that had been built on the edge of town. Just a year earlier, that land had been a rice paddy. The name of that factory was one the whole world knew. It was Coca-Cola. In late 1999, Coca-Cola's Indian subsidiary applied for a permit to build a bottling plant in Plachimada. The government approved it. The plant began operations in March 2000. Through 6 bore wells, it pumped up to 1.5 million liters of groundwater every single day. It takes roughly 3.8 liters of water to produce just 1 liter of Coca-Cola. That's not just the water inside the drink. It includes water used for washing, cooling, and running the entire production process. Groundwater that had accumulated over hundreds of years was disappearing by the millions of liters every day. Within 6 months of the plant opening, the village well levels had visibly dropped. In a nearby village in Rajasthan, groundwater levels fell by 10 meters in just 5 years. Farmers' rice paddies dried up and cracked. Coconut trees began to wither. Crop yields collapsed. Livelihoods fell apart. Radhika's husband was forced to sell their farmland. That land had been in the family for 3 generations. And this wasn't just happening in Plachimada. Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Rajasthan. Villages across India near Coca-Cola plants were reporting the same damage. But Coca-Cola did something more. Mass-producing beverages always generates industrial waste. In this case, it was sludge, the residue filtered out during water purification. Disposing of that sludge through legal channels costs money. Coca-Cola found a way to avoid that cost. They loaded the sludge onto trucks and delivered it to local farmers. They called it premium organic fertilizer. It was free of charge. The struggling farmers believed them and spread it across their fields. At first, nothing seemed wrong. But after one growing season, the soil began to harden. Crops stopped growing altogether. A BBC journalist collected samples of the sludge and sent them to a lab at the University of Exeter in England. The report identified 2 substances: cadmium and lead. Cadmium is classified as a Group 1 carcinogen by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. Even tiny amounts of lead can damage the nervous system and are especially devastating to the developing brains of young children. Both substances were found at levels far exceeding safety limits. Whether Coca-Cola knew exactly what was in that sludge has never been definitively proven. But one thing is clear: they buried industrial waste that should have been properly disposed of in the fields of farmers who trusted them. The farmland was devastated, and no one was held accountable. In April 2002, Radhika walked to the gates of the factory. She was not alone. More than 2,000 villagers stood with her. Most of them were farmers. Most of them were women. They were members of the indigenous Adivasi community. They had no money and no legal expertise. No famous names, no powerful connections. But they sat down in front of the factory gates. And they held that ground for nearly 2 years. Through the day, through the night, through the monsoon season. Even when the rain poured down, they did not leave. Some mothers came with their babies, strapped to their backs. The police came. People were taken away. People were arrested. Private security guards used force against them. Still, they did not back down. News of the protest spread across India and around the world. In January 2004, an international water conference was held in this tiny village. Activists flew in from Canada and Finland. Together, they issued the Plachimada Declaration. Water is not private property. Water is not a commodity. Water is a common right of all humanity. Public outrage grew. The Indian Parliament banned Coca-Cola products from its own cafeteria. Eventually, the local government revoked the plant's operating license. Coca-Cola challenged the decision in court. The legal battle dragged on for years. But in 2005, the plant was permanently shut down. Barefoot Adivasi farmers had brought the world's largest beverage company to its knees. Coca-Cola never admitted wrongdoing. They insisted the groundwater depletion was caused by declining rainfall. They denied any connection to the sludge contamination. But Kerala's government-appointed expert committee reached a very different conclusion. They calculated the damages owed to the village at approximately $16 million. Coca-Cola paid not a single cent. The lawsuits faded away without resolution. Even India's Supreme Court let it go. Instead, Coca-Cola chose a completely different strategy. A global image makeover. In 2015, Coca-Cola made an announcement to the world. We have returned 100% of the water used in our beverages back to nature and communities. Major media outlets ran the story. It was featured in sustainability reports. ESG investors praised it as a model of corporate responsibility. The phrase 100% water replenishment appeared on billboards around the world. Coca-Cola became a company that protected the environment. They dressed themselves in the image of a clean, responsible corporation. Their stock price went up. But nothing came back to the people of Plachimada. No clean water, no restored farmland, not a single dollar in compensation. Coca-Cola erased 20 years of harm with a single statistic. In 2023, they went one step further. They announced they would donate the plant site and buildings to the Kerala state government. On the surface, it looked like an act of accountability. But the villagers saw through it immediately. Handing over land without paying compensation was a way to permanently escape legal liability. There was no apology. There was no compensation. They simply offered an empty building and tried to close the case. It has been 20 years since the factory closed. Radhika's hair has turned gray. She still wakes before dawn. But she no longer walks to the well, because the well is still dry. Her village still suffers from groundwater depletion today. The farmland poisoned by toxic sludge has still not recovered. The children who once stood at those factory gates have grown up. Those grown children now have children of their own. And their children are growing up in a village that still has no clean water. The name Plachimada is slowly fading from the world's memory. Search for it, and you won't find much. It disappeared from the news long ago. That is exactly the ending Coca-Cola wanted. Meanwhile, Coca-Cola sells 2 billion servings of its drinks around the world every single day. Revenue has hit record highs. The logo shines brighter. The ads grow more dazzling. Every time a can of Coke is made, somewhere underground, the water level drops. Where that water came from, which village paid the price, none of that is printed on the label. Right now, the same thing is happening in villages around the world. In Rajasthan, in El Salvador, in Chiapas, Mexico. Villages with names most people have never heard. Villages that never make the news. Villages whose people have no voice. The groundwater of poor villages, water that took hundreds of years to collect, is turned into Coke and placed on a shelf. And the people of those villages cannot even afford to buy bottled water. The world asks no questions. Not consumers, not investors, not governments. That can you drank today. That crisp, satisfying sound when you cracked it open. Behind that sound, Radhika is standing in front of a dry well, for 20 years now. That may contain someone's well. Thank you. See you in the next story.